No, thank you. I want to thank you. Thank you for your help.
Awesome.
It's been wonderful to work with you, and yeah, and then this like really interactive learning really works. It
Great.
does. It does work.
You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
IELTS Speaking, a brief overview of Part 3. Giving and supporting opinions, talking about advantages and disadvantages. In this tutorial, you will find out what to expect in Part 3 of the IELTS Speaking Test, learn how to give and support opinions, and you will be able to improve your ability to talk about advantages and disadvantages. Hello there, my name is Ben Worthington and I'm the owner, operator, chief executive, whatever you want to say, of IELTSPodcast.com. And thank you for tuning in today. As you know, on this podcast and with these tutorials, we aim to improve your ability with all sections of the IELTS, be it the reading, the speaking, the writing, and the listening. And we do this by offering you valuable, practical tutorials that you can implement. And just as a side note, just before we get into this, I want to mention 3 things that I think will definitely speed up your improvement. Number 1 is a technique, or not a technique actually, it's just awareness that I kind of borrowed from a book I'm reading called Atomic Habits. And one point that really struck me in this book was the clarification of motion and action. For example, if you are preparing for IELTS by just watching lots of videos on how to write a 4-paragraph essay, how to write a 5-paragraph essay, how to paraphrase, how to, if you are just watching videos on YouTube or just listening to tutorials or whatever, then you are in motion and you are using preparation as an excuse, as basically procrastination. And this will not help you that much, okay? Because the reason is because it doesn't really produce an outcome. There's no output there. You're just passively learning. And basically, your preparation becomes procrastination. The danger here is that just sitting down and passively learning from these channels, from the media, or just reading about, essay writing, reading about the IELTS speaking test or whatever, it feels good and it delays possible failure. But you're not really going to develop yourself as fast as action. And by action, I mean actively learning. I mean speaking aloud, maybe from a script, maybe just freestyling, so to speak, or actively writing and getting feedback. So this is a very important element. And the more you implement a sort of like action-based preparation strategy rather than the passive strategy, then you're going to be getting closer to automaticity. Automaticity is when you do it without thinking, and this is when it starts to become embedded in your brain cells. The channels, the grooves are cut and they become deeper, so all of a sudden it becomes an unconscious action. For example, if you've been playing a sport, if you've been playing tennis, for example, you can just pick up the racket and you don't have to think about, if you're intermediate player, you don't have to think about your grip, you don't have to think about how you hit it. It becomes automatic, and this frees up resources so you can be thinking about other things. Maybe you can be watching the other tennis player, maybe you can be thinking about the tennis player's last few hits. They were all on the right hand, for example, so you can maybe switch it to the left hand or whatever. But the point is that you want to be really getting into a frame of mind where your preparation is action orientated rather than passive. Now, don't get me wrong, passive learning is good, especially for a language, but there comes a point where you have to maybe just close the browser or just put your phone down and start writing, pen and paper or on your computer or whatever, or start speaking. There comes a time where you've done enough of this passive learning and it's time to start the action. Now, as I said, there is a time and a place for passive learning. This is usually to utilize what I call your downtime. So if you're on the bus, if you're on the train, or in the car, or walking to work, or just going on a walk on the countryside, whatever, then it's a good time to listen to Ben Worthington. It's a good time to use this downtime just to fill your brain with the vocabulary, ideas, tips, and success, stuff like that. But eventually you do want to be writing and speaking and doing practice tests and getting feedback. So if you feel you're at that point and you might, I don't know, maybe you're feeling guilty now that you've been doing too much passive learning, that's fine. If you're at that point, then come over to IELTSPodcast.com and we can give you some feedback on your writing, and this will help you improve faster. And it also shifts your learning from passively learning into actively learning, especially if you're doing the online course where you're watching the tutorials and then implementing, writing your essays using that knowledge, using those tips, using that framework you've just learnt, and then sending it to us, our team of ex-IELTS examiners, native speakers. We can give you feedback, usually in 24 hours, and we'll keep you going. We'll keep pushing you forward, and we'll keep on improving your work by giving you some valuable feedback. So that was point number 1. Point number 2, don't worry, we are getting to IELTS Speaking Part 3. Point number 2, download our apps, the IELTS podcast apps. Go to the App Store or the Play Store, and I'm saying downloading the apps. I'm saying or suggesting that you download these apps because they now come with the transcript. And if you've got the transcript in front of you, then you can be reading at the same time as listening. So you're going to start associating the sounds to the words. You could even pause the recording and then just say it again. So we can implement like techniques of mimicking. And also in the transcripts, there's some links to the resources. So it kind of brings it a step closer to actively learning. Also, if you're getting the podcasts, if you're getting the actual official app, then you're getting updated when we've got new material, and it's quite a powerful way to improve your learning. Now, the third point, what I'm going to mention here is kind of like a sketching out of what we are still working on, which is a solid framework for the speaking. As you may have heard in the previous episodes, we have touched on this framework, and here we're mentioning sort of like details of this framework. It's what we've discovered as we've trying and testing new strategies, and I thought, this would be useful for students to learn. So let's have a look. As I said before, in this tutorial, you will find out what is expected of you in part 3 of the test. You learn how to give and support your opinions, which is necessary if you want to be scoring high. And also you're going to improve your ability to speak about the advantages and disadvantages. Now, just a very, very brief mention here that, as you know, the IELTS Academic and IELTS General training involves a face-to-face interview with the examiner, and it's the same whether it's paper-based or it's computer-based. There's going to be 4 parts that you will be tested on: pronunciation, grammatical range and accuracy, lexical resource, fluency, and coherence. I won't go into those details because I mentioned them in a previous podcast. But in this tutorial, we are specifically going to focus on part 3. We're going to look at part 3, and this is the most challenging part of the speaking test. And it lasts between 4 and 5 minutes. In this section, the examiner is going to be asking you more abstract questions about the topic that you spoke about in part 2. The examiner is going to start by saying something like, "We've been talking about a place you've visited, and I'd like to discuss with you 1 or 2 more general questions related to this. So, let's consider first of all tourism in your country. How do you think tourism has changed in your country in the last 20 years? Okay, that might be the first question. The other questions will be similar in their difficulty. Do you believe this is a positive or negative development? Why? In some parts of the world, tourism is having a negative impact on the environment. In your opinion, what can be done about this? Now, all of these questions require you to give your opinion. And to ensure that you give a full, complete answer, then I would recommend this strategy. First of all, you give your opinion. Yeah? And ideally, you will try and paraphrase it rather than repeating the question. So, let's have a look at that question number 1. How do you think tourism has changed in your country in the last 20 years? So, I think the tourism industry in Turkey has expanded dramatically over the last 2 decades. And then we're going to explain the reasons for our opinion. This is very similar to the framework we suggest for the body paragraphs in IELTS Writing Task 2. And by the framework we suggest, I mean the framework in the online course. In the online course, we've got a framework, and it's been so successful. This is why we are developing a framework for the speaking as well. Let's jump into it. So, I think the tourism industry in Turkey has expanded dramatically over the last 2 decades. Now I'm going to explain this. Improved transportation systems around the world have made it easier to travel than ever before. Okay, and then I'm going to give examples. In the past, tourists who wanted to visit Turkey had to fly into one of the major cities, such as Istanbul or Ankara. But these days, lots of the small towns along the Mediterranean coast have their own international airports. For example, you can fly directly from the UK to Bodrum, which is one of the most popular resorts in Turkey. So it's a very complete answer. And using this strategy, using this framework, we can be sure to give complete answers each time. Now, in the current Speaking Confidence course, we have a technique for paraphrasing, which I've mentioned before, but it ensures that we respond with the correct tense, and it kind of forces you to use a similar structure, but it's not as detailed and it's not as rigid yet. We're going to, as I said, we're developing it. Let me give you an overview. So we respond by paraphrasing, then I'll give you the reasons, and then I'm going to provide examples. And as I said before, examples are gold. Why are they gold? Because they force you to go into more details. They force you to use topic-specific vocabulary. And it's a good opportunity to slip in an anecdote. It doesn't have to be sort of like for example, and then talk about maybe the infrastructure of the country like we just did. You could also say, for example, my auntie nowadays regularly catches direct flights from, I don't know, Leeds Bradford Airport directly into Bodrum. You know, I can give a personal anecdote. By the way, you can't give it's not advisable, I don't think, to give personal anecdotes in the writing, but with the speaking, it's natural, so don't worry about it, you can do it. Let's use the same strategy now for the second question. Second question, do you believe this is a positive or negative development? Let's see. Same strategy. We're going to give the opinion, our opinion, give reasons, provide examples. My feeling is that the advantages of this growth outweigh the disadvantages, at the moment at least. Now I'll explain it. Turkey is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world, and although it's not a country which is dependent on tourism, this industry still generates a significant amount of revenue. Now I'll provide my example. Turkey just has so much to offer international visitors. Whether you want to visit historical monuments, bustling bazaars, or stunning beaches, there is something for everyone. We obviously need to manage the impact which this increase in tourism is having on the environment, but I think we are heading in the right direction. Now, let's just go back, and I want to highlight some of the point scoring aspects of this answer. Not only have we said that, first of all, we're kind of directly answering the question, which is always good. So my feeling is that the advantages of this growth outweigh the disadvantages. So we're kind of making it clear where we're going, which is good. And also, we did it in a fairly sophisticated way. We didn't say it's good, it's not bad. We said the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, which is a little bit formal, but it's okay. And then we qualify it at the moment at least. And it's always good just to qualify your statements. It's a good, it's a useful technique. Now, we've used the superlatives, which are always very welcome. Turkey is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the world. Note, we didn't say one of the most popular places. We said tourist destinations. This is topic-specific vocabulary. Then we use a conjunction. We say, although it's not a country which is dependent on tourism. Dependent on. And this is a very useful phrase. What it means is that it's not maybe like a country like Cyprus, where most of their money comes from tourism, I think. I'm not so sure about that. But there are countries that rely heavily on tourism. In this respect, Turkey isn't one of them. It's got lots of other industries. But then it says, then the speaker says, this industry still generates a significant amount of revenue. I like this. It's higher level. The student didn't say still generates a lot of revenue. No, we said significant. Why did we say significant? Because we are going to score high and we are higher level students. Still generates a significant amount of revenue. This is a word that I regularly suggest students to use when I'm correcting essays, and I see a lot. It can be very easily substituted for significant. Now, going back to the framework, let me recap the framework. We are giving our opinion, we're explaining the reasons, and we're providing examples. Let me say it again. I'm giving my opinion, I'm explaining the reasons, and I'm giving examples. Very complete answer. Let's go. Turkey has so much to offer international visitors. And I'm not saying tourists because I've probably used that word a few times before. So I'm going to say international visitors. Now I'm using another conjunction, whether you want to visit historical monuments. And now I'm going to give you a list. And lists is, incidentally, another technique that we teach in the writing course. Lists are good opportunities just to stack your vocabulary. So we say this, 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 and even this. Never write that, okay? Because it's just too vague, and don't even speak like that. But don't speak exactly like that, but use that structure. So I'll give you an example. Whether you want to visit historical monuments, bustling bazaars, or stunning beaches, or even the balloon festival in the centre, there is something for everyone. So that's just a mini example there of this kind of the listing structure. We go into this in more detail in the course. Next sentence. We obviously need to manage the impact. So we're kind of like going back to the question there. We obviously need to manage the impact which this increase in tourism is having on the environment. But I think we're heading in the right direction. Note this, we say, I think we are heading in the right direction. We don't say, I think it's good. Yeah? The English language is immense with the amount of words, and the amount of words available is increasing every single year, which is kind of weird. This just goes back to the idea of languages being living things, not stale structures. They are living, it's developing. Anyway, I think we are heading in the right direction. So, as I said before, very useful structure. We give your opinion, explain your reasons, and then give some examples. These examples can be similar to the writing, where we might state something quite factual, or it can be something quite anecdotal. Yeah. For example, my friends, they love going to the bazaars and just finding counterfeit products and then bartering with the locals. The locals are quite fierce barterers, I've heard. Yeah, just a little anecdote like that, a little story. This reminds me actually when I went to Turkey and I was bartering with the men in the bazaar, and I was arguing with a guy over some Asics trainers, and then he wouldn't give me the price that I wanted, so I just left it and walked away. And this is after like a good 5-10 minutes of arguing with the guy. I was like, I don't need it, doesn't matter. Then I just walked away, and about 5 minutes later, I feel this tugging on my back, and I turn around like, what the heck is that? Turn around, and there's a little kid with a box of the Asics trainers, and he's like, okay, 35 lira or whatever it was, I can't remember. It's probably more like 15 euros. And I was like, okay, cool. But I don't know, it's just a funny memory, and if I ever were in that situation to talk about Turkey and talk about the bazaar, then I could just pull on this little anecdote. And there's lots of vocabulary there. There's bartering, I'm talking about these Asics trainers, this kid following me, so on and so forth. Anyway, some of the phrases that you can use to express your opinion include I think, I believe, in my opinion, or you could even say, my feeling or my opinion is that. Yeah? I'll just say those again. Very similar to the writing, actually. I think, I believe, in my opinion is that tourism is expanding a lot, or my feeling is that tourism is very, very detrimental to the country. Note there I said detrimental, I didn't say bad. Why did I say detrimental? Because we are going to be scoring high. Let's have a look at another set of example questions. The examiner might say something like this. We've been talking about shopping, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. So let's consider, first of all, online shopping. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of online shopping? Next question. Do you think the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Third question. How do you think people's shopping habits will change in the future? Now, hopefully, not hopefully, but maybe you've paused the tutorial and you're going to start thinking about your own answers. Maybe grab a pen and paper and write down some ideas. Let's transform this tutorial into active learning rather than passive learning. And trust me, if you can do this, the more often you do it, the faster you will improve. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of online shopping? Here's the structure. First, we can state an advantage. Then we're going to explain why it's an advantage. And then we're going to give an example. Yeah? And then we could even provide a second advantage, a second explanation, and a second example. Yeah? But at the very least, try and implement this structure. Once again, first state an advantage, explain why it's an advantage, then give an example. Let's jump into it. In my opinion, one of the main reasons for the popularity of online shopping is that it's so convenient. If you want to shop at a shopping centre, you have the hassle of getting there, and shopping centres have fixed opening hours. However, if you shop online, you can shop from the comfort of your own home at any time of the day or night. Second advantage. Another positive aspect of online shopping is the fact that you have access to a much wider variety of products. Bricks and mortar stores only have so much space to store and display their merchandise, whereas online shops don't suffer from the same constraints. For instance, here comes my example. For instance, if you want to buy clothes, you will be able to find far more styles and colours to choose from if you shop online. Then, okay. So in that example, using that framework, you're going to give quite an extensive answer. And you can also use the same strategy to talk about the disadvantages. And right now, I'll give you some useful phrases. One of the main advantages, and I like this sentence a lot, and it's a phrase that we're going to be incorporating into both courses, the Speaking Confidence course and the Sentence Guide IELTS Writing Test 2 course. It's a very useful phrase. It's one of the main advantages, or one of the most popular cities, or one of the most interesting facts. Yeah, it's quite an easy collocation to master. Usually you can use it with the superlative, and it's quite easy. And it goes back to what I've been saying before, that if we can use it enough times, if we can repeat it enough times, it starts to sound natural, gets into the muscle memory, and it frees up resources for you to start planning ahead and to think about more challenging aspects that you might be facing in the exam. Master that phrase. one of the main advantages, or one of the main benefits, or one of the main upsides of online shopping is, one of the most interesting places I've ever visited is Peru, for example. Another positive aspect is, so this is good for building up that answer. Another positive aspect of online shopping is the convenience. Another positive aspect of online shopping is the ability to compare prices with a click of a button. Another useful collocation there. Another positive aspect of traveling abroad is the fact that you get to see new people, hear new languages, and taste new food. Okay? And of course, we can use the reverse of these. For example, one key disadvantage, one key drawback, one key downside of online shopping is the fact that you have to wait for your goods. One key disadvantage of online shopping is that you cannot actually touch the materials, or that you cannot actually try on the clothes that you want to buy. Final point. Another negative point is that it's difficult and costly to return the goods. Another negative point of traveling is that it could be argued as unsafe, especially if you're traveling on the road. Whatever. So those are some useful phrases you can employ to talk about the advantages and disadvantages. And these are quite handy for part 3 of the exam. Now, you can find out a lot more techniques. You can discover more strategies if you look at the IELTS Speaking Confidence course. And also you can get some feedback on your speaking as well. And also we've got the essay correction service where we also give you feedback. And as I've been saying for years now, feedback is the fastest way to improve. That's it from me in this tutorial. If you found this tutorial useful, I would be very grateful, and it would be fantastic if you tell your friends about this if they're struggling. If anybody comes to mind who you know is struggling with the IELTS, then send them this link, send them some links about IELTS podcast, and we can help them too. If you personally are struggling, or you just failed your exam, then get in contact, send us an email, and we can send you some help. Remember to sign up at IELTSPodcast.com. Get on the email list and we'll send you some resources. And if you've got a Kindle, then we've recently released some new Kindle books. Have a look at the Amazon store there. We've got Topics and Ideas book. We've got the writing book. We've got a vocabulary book coming out soon. There's lots of resources there, and get in contact and we would love to help you. This is what we do. Okay, take care, keep your chin up, keep struggling, sorry, that's not the best advice, is it? Keep striving, keep pushing, keep working, and you will get there. Have a fantastic day and take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.